We are going to start with a macro statistic that is so broken, it defies logic. Just in the United States, 44 million people hold a staggering 1.7 trillion in student debt. Globally, the figures are astronomical. Meanwhile, the real wages for college graduates have remained virtually stagnant for 2 decades. This is the truth no one tells you. They don't intend to fix this broken system. They intend to financialize it, weaponize it, and keep it as a permanent method of social control. This is effectively a legal theft of your future. And it is happening quietly in broad daylight. Welcome to the greatest Ponzi scheme designed to maintain the status quo. Welcome to the meat grinder of degree inflation. You were scammed. We all were. If you were born after 1980, your life script was written before you took your first breath. The script went like this. Do well in school, get good grades, go to a good university, maybe even grad school. If you do this, you are guaranteed a ticket to the middle-class paradise. You were told it was the only way out. The alternative was poverty, flipping burgers, or fixing toilets. So you did it. You followed the rules. You borrowed the money. You maybe even got the master's degree. And now you find yourself trapped in the cruelest paradox of modern economic history. You are part of the most educated generation in history. Yet statistically, you are the first generation to be poorer than your parents. You aren't an aristocrat in the knowledge economy. You are the high-educated poor. You are the barista with a PhD, the Uber driver with a master's, the overqualified applicant fighting for a job that doesn't require a degree, paying a salary that doesn't even cover the interest on your loans. This is not an accident. This is not a bug. This is a feature. To understand how we got here, we have to dissect this beast like a forensic pathologist. We need to talk about inflation. Usually when you hear inflation, you think of the Fed printing money, making your milk and gas expensive. But that's only half the story. There is a fundamental law of economics. Anything that becomes ubiquitous becomes valueless. Air is vital, but it's free because it's everywhere. Diamonds are useless, but they are expensive because they are scarce. In the 1950s, a college degree was a diamond. Less than 5% of the population had one. Having it meant you were elite. It was a scarcity signal to employers that you were not only smart, but came from a certain stock. It was a golden ticket. But then, over the next few decades, an unholy alliance of government, banks, and universities decided to turn this scarce asset into air. They started printing degrees on a massive scale. This mass production didn't make society smarter. It just diluted the value of the degree. It's like Weimar Germany printing marks or Zimbabwe printing dollars. When everyone is a millionaire, no one is. When everyone has a bachelor's degree, the bachelor's degree becomes the new high school diploma. This is the brutal math of degree inflation. But it's not just about supply and demand, it's about a transfer of value. Imagine a company selling a product that takes 4 years to deliver, increases in price at 3 times the rate of inflation every year, requires debt that you cannot discharge in bankruptcy, and doesn't guarantee it will perform the function it was advertised for. If this were a private company, the executives would be in prison for fraud. But this is the modern university system. Let's pinpoint the moment this turned cancerous. 1971 is a key date, not just for the gold standard, but for the financialization of everything, including human capital. The government, with good intentions, started guaranteeing student loans. This severed the risk feedback loop. In a normal market, if a bank thinks you can't pay them back, they won't lend you $100,000 to get a degree in underwater basket weaving with no job prospects. That rejection is a necessary market signal. It tells universities, hey, your degree isn't worth that much. But when the government stepped in to back the loans, the risk vanished. The banks didn't care if you could pay because Uncle Sam would pay. The universities realized they had a blank check. Since an 18-year-old could borrow the money regardless of the price, why not raise the price? This is why college tuition has risen over 1,400% in the last 40 years, outpacing inflation, healthcare, and even housing. The university became a hedge fund masquerading as a non-profit. They didn't spend this money on better professors or better education. They spent it on administrative bloat. Look at the data. Between 1976 and 2018, full-time administrators jumped by 164%, while tenured faculty increased by only 92%. Universities are now stuffed with vice deans of student experience, diversity and inclusion, or alumni relations. They build climbing walls, lazy rivers, and luxury dorms to attract customers. The modern college is a luxury resort with a bad educational curriculum attached to it. And who pays for this? You do. With the fruits of your future labor plus interest, It is effectively an intergenerational wealth transfer. Money moving from the young who are desperate for a future to the old administrators and bankers who are entrenched in the system. But that's not the darkest part. The darkest part is the psychological psyop. They created a culture of shame. They told you that blue-collar work was beneath you. If you went to trade school, if you became an electrician or a plumber or a welder, you were a failure. Even though those jobs often out-earn many white-collar roles and come with zero debt, the narrative demonized them. This was a way to artificially inflate demand. They cut off your alternatives. It's like a monopoly destroying all competitors and then raising the price to the moon. You had no choice but to buy their product, no matter how ridiculous the cost. Now let's look at what this mass production has led to. We have arrived at the Peter Turchin moment. Peter Turchin is a historian who uses mathematical models to predict societal collapse. He coined a term called elite overproduction. It sounds complex, but it's simple. A society only has a finite number of elite positions. Jobs that pay well, offer status, and wield power. When the higher education system pumps out candidate elites, holding advanced degrees far in excess of the number of positions available, you get a game of musical chairs from hell. The music stops, there are 10 chairs, and there are 100 people with PhDs fighting for them. The 10 people sit down, they win. What happens to the other 90? They don't just shrug and go become happy baristas. No, they get angry, they feel betrayed. They were promised a future if they followed the rules. Now they are indebted and working jobs they feel are beneath their station. These 90 people become what Turchin calls counter-elites. They are educated, articulate, capable of organizing, and furious. Historically, every major revolution and societal upheaval has been led by this class of surplus elites. From the French Revolution to this very moment, when you see political polarization and extremism, you are watching the spillover effects of degree inflation in real time. This is why it feels so hard to get a job. You are competing with thousands of identically credentialed people. This is why you need a master's degree to be an administrative assistant, a job that required a high school diploma 30 years ago. This is the hyperinflation of the credential currency. Employers are trapped in this too. When everyone has a bachelor's, the bachelor's loses its signal. So employers raise the bar. Now they demand a master's, or 5 years of experience. They use degrees not because the job requires the skills, but as a lazy filtering mechanism, a proxy for IQ and a test of conformity. Yes, conformity. That is the other dark secret of the system. The modern education system was designed in Prussia to create obedient soldiers and factory workers. It wasn't designed to create critical thinkers. It was designed to create workers who could sit still, do repetitive tasks, listen to authority, and turn in assignments on time. When you get a degree, the primary thing you prove to an employer is not that you are smart, but that you can endure 4 years of bureaucratic torture, that you follow instructions, and that you can survive the system. It is an expensive signal of obedience, and now that signal is becoming worthless because of the other tsunami hitting the shore. AI. For years we were told, learn to code, do cognitive work. Machines can only replace manual labor. That was another lie. The AI revolution is coming specifically for the rote cognitive labor, the exact kind of mid-level white-collar work that universities train you for. Copywriting, analysis, basic coding, accounting, legal research. These are the fields we pushed everyone into. We manufactured millions of knowledge workers right at the moment we invented technology that can do their jobs for a fraction of a cent. It is a train wreck in slow motion. On one side, trillions in debt and millions of graduates holding depreciating assets, degrees. On the other side, AI rapidly automating the need for those assets. This is the endgame of the high-educated poor. You are caught in a vice. Your skills are commoditized, your credentials are diluted, and your debt is rigid. If you look closely at this assembly line, you realize the system acts almost like a biological organism protecting itself. Universities won't cut enrollment because they need the tuition to feed the administrative beast. The government won't stop guaranteeing loans because that would crash the entire higher education sector and spike unemployment. So they double down. They push more master's programs. They invent new, fancy-sounding but useless degrees. They lower standards to get more bodies in the door. It is a machine that must eat, and you are the food. Look at the very top, the Ivy Leagues. Have you noticed that despite the explosion in applicants, the class sizes at Harvard and Yale have barely budged in decades? This is the opposite of the second and third tier universities that expanded wildly to make money. Why? Because the elites understand the value of scarcity. They aren't just selling education, they are selling exclusivity. They maintain the currency value of their degrees by artificially restricting the supply. This creates a caste system. The few at the top with the real gold standard degrees who still get access to power, and the millions at the bottom with fiat degrees that are printing into oblivion. It is a ruthless duality. If you aren't in that top 1% of institutions, you are effectively playing a different game, but paying the same entry fee. It's like buying a ticket on the Titanic. The first-class passengers, those with family wealth and elite degrees, are already on the lifeboats. You, with your expensive middle-class ticket, your generic degree, are being told that if you just stand up straight and work hard enough, the ship won't sink. But the water is already at your ankles. So what is the conclusion? History tells us this imbalance cannot last. When a society produces a massive cohort of young people with high expectations and zero reality of meeting them, the social contract breaks. We are seeing it break. You see it in the lying flat, tangping movements, a rejection of the hustle culture. If the game is rigged, why play? You see it in the collapse of marriage and birth rates. How do you start a family when you are carrying a mortgage worth of debt for a piece of paper? You see it in the total erosion of trust in institutions. The tragedy of the high-educated poor is that they are not just financially bankrupt, they are spiritually bankrupt. They did everything right and they lost. Under the shadow of this system, the laws of historical materialism are working relentlessly. Neither individual fate nor the fate of nations can escape the judgment of mathematics. We are not approaching the pattern, we are deep inside the pattern. Just as every Ponzi scheme eventually runs out of new investors, the credential Ponzi is hitting the wall of demographics and technology. When that moment comes, when the bubble finally bursts, it won't be gentle. It will be catastrophic. And right now, the most dangerous thing you can do is keep believing the old script. That voice telling you to just go back to school, it will pay off, is not the voice of wisdom. It is the voice of the captain on a sinking ship trying to keep you calm while he escapes. See the assembly line for what it is. See how you are being manufactured. See the math. Because in this cold new world, only the truth, no matter how brutal, gives you a fighting chance. Game over. Welcome to reality.